And we're joined by Howard Soon. They call you a living legend in the wine business, Howard.
I'm alive, though. That's good.
And recently made a member of the Order of Cannabis.
Yes.
So I just wanted to start by congratulating you for that.
Thank you very much. Thrilled and excited and all that. Proud Canadian.
So I just wanted to know, and no one watches these things, so don't worry about it. Between us.
Sure.
There isn't any secret meetings that take place?
There are no secret meetings. We get called to be invested. We receive a medal. It's the highest honor that a civilian can receive. So
Right.
not in the army or military, but for civilians, it's the highest honor you can be recognized for in Canada. So it's good.
And in your case, it's because of a life's work dedicated to wine.
Yeah, furthering Canadian wine, British Columbia wine in particular.
And what a journey it's been in this valley, and I think no better person to sort of take us through the history, because you came to the business to work for Kelowna Wines, that we now know as Peller.
Yes.
Your background on the business side in the beer business. So you didn't come to this as a...
No, I had the science, Kent. I had biochem from UBC in Vancouver. Then I went to work for Labatt's because it was a great job to have, get your beer for free coming out of the campus. Of course, we like that.
Awesome.
I worked for Labatt's for 5 years. And then the wine thing happened about late 70s. Wine was going crazy. White wine, right? Everyone.
Right.
So 1980, I thought, you know what? If I want to get back to the West from Winnipeg, the only way I'm going to do it is to find a different industry like wine. So I looked into it. I took a night course actually in Winnipeg and learned about how to taste wine appreciation.
Okay.
Now I teach it at Okanagan College for fun, and it's cool. But getting people excited about wine, as you know, interpreting wine, understanding it, choosing wine, all those things are important to our industry, to British Columbia.
So what were you doing when you first came to the business in 1980? What was your job description then, and what was going on?
I was a quality control manager, and about a year later I was offered a job as assistant winemaker.
Okay.
I think my boss sort of saw that I wanted to do something different than just running a lab, analyzing, finding errors or mistakes or good stuff. So I realized when I got into the job as assistant winemaker, creating something, making something that people would like or not like, I wanted to do that. I really liked that.
Right. So, okay, 1980. I think I was in high school, and Kelowna Wines was putting was putting out these big jugs with that little ring to put your finger through.
I remember having them at high school dances. Yeah. Those big jugs. Maybe you did too.
This
grade
was
11,
not
grade 10.
okay. This was not an industry known for being the best wine.
No. We had discerning customers like high school kids, though. Not that I should be in favor of that, but you know, there was a market for it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in business doing that, right? Right. So it's a phase. I think it's a phase in the wine industry. I mean, California did the same thing. They went from big jugs, you know, economic, cheap and cheerful, they call it in England, all that stuff. Then they became to the great wines, good wines.
Right. Okay.
And that's what we're up to.
But in BC though, this wasn't really a slow evolution. It kind of came to a major climax in the late 80s.
Yes, the trigger was free trade, I think, NAFTA.
Which allowed us to no longer have this kind of, it was almost a supply management system we had, where growers were kind of guaranteed that their grapes would get purchased, whether they were any good or not.
Exactly, and not blaming the growers, it's just that's the business plan that it was.
So that was going to be gone, and there were angry growers at that time. Do you remember
There were. But there's one sarcastic letter, I don't know if you've heard this one. One sarcastic letter that said, okay, my friend's a grape grower and he's paid $8,500 per acre to not grow grapes. I would like a job where I'm paid $8,500 per acre to not work, to not grow grapes. I think that is a great job. I'd like to have a job like that.
Yeah.
You know, sarcastic, but it was in a way true. But you know, and those growers, they went back, replanted. And they planted some of the great varieties of grapes and wines that we have today.
So I've got this picture in my mind. I was at one of the meetings when the people at the front were saying, sorry guys, this is what we're doing, we're ripping these things out. And I remember a few growers, a lot of sort of ethnic growers, they were taking their pieces of paper and they were walking up the aisle and throwing them. They were that mad. Now some of those very growers, after they calmed down, are the people that started planting the Vitis vinifera that replaced those old hybrid grapes.
Yes, and my friend Dick Cleve actually was one of the first guys that ever planted those vinifera grapes, that European style varieties that make great wines. He's the first guy to prove that we could do that in our winters. Because the myth, and I was taught that myth, was that the winters are too cold and we couldn't grow those kind of sensitive varieties. But in fact, we can.
People didn't notice Germany.
Yeah, all that, right?
Yeah.
So you know we're on the map, so we're good.
Right. So then, What's going on with you around that time? You had been
little guy running around the lab, working with the lab technicians, making sure everything's going well, making sure the analysis gets done, not understanding the wine process, but asking questions like, "How come you do it this way?" And they give me the answer. Well, it all depends. And it kills me because in beer was always like, be consistent. You always do it this way. The process is this. The malt comes in, it makes beer at the other end. Right. With wine, it's always like a decision that the winemaker makes, or people attached to the winemaking would make. So I'd be saying, look, why? How come you use this pump, or you don't use this pump? How come you know this grape requires this treatment? Well, it all depends. And then you have to understand all the processes, because there's 2,000 decisions used to make a batch of wine. So think about that when you go, ask your winemakers, well, how'd you make that wine? Well, they have a long answer because it's 2,000 decisions they're thinking about.
Right.
So I love that part, because it's an individual thing. This winemaker does it this way, this guy does it different, person does it different. I like that.
Right. So there you were working for one of the corporates at a time when there's so many of these smaller wineries that are doing such great things.
But we were big, but we were closely held. The Cozy family at first.
Yes.
Then they were sold to Standard Brands, a large food company from the east.
Right.
And then from there, we just kept being owned by other people.
Right.
And you got a little nervous about it, actually, if you're in a place and someone's buying us, we're for sale. Everybody working there getting nervous. But after a couple of times, you say, okay, so what?
Right.
So what? They obviously value us, so they wouldn't want to buy us and sell us. So we're okay.
And the other nice thing that happened, though, was while all of these small wineries are starting to give BC a really good name for wine, at least your corporation was seeing the value in that, and Sandhill was born, which truly was, had all of the...
and the VQA program was coming along, which helped further that, in the marketplace. I think that I'll tell you something, Kent, we're not successful unless we sell a bottle of wine to the consumer. So the marketplace was changing, and that's what we had to be smart about, and start making, locally grown grapes from British Columbia grown grapes. That was the thing.
Right. And then, but Sandhill becomes like a single vineyard, truly operated.
Yes, I've always wanted that. We didn't even coin the name Sandhill. That came from Richard Cleve as well. I said, what's the name of your vineyard? Sandhill, because it's on Sandhill Corner in Oliver on Black Sage Road. It's all local geography, right? That's what this is all about. So then our marketer says, well, we think we'd like to use that name for our wine series. Do you think we could do that? We'll have to ask Richard. Okay, go ahead, ask him. So he said, okay, I'll give it to you, the name, Sandhill. But Sandhill was because most of our grapes were based in the south, in Oliver's. But what really happened is we started with 2 vineyards, Sandhill Vineyard itself, and then Richard Cleve's Phantom Creek. And then his partner, Robert Goltz, came on, and I said, what do you call your vineyard? I think we'll call it Osprey Ridge, because osprey flower on it, so it's Osprey Ridge. And I have to have a reason for all those vineyards. All those vineyards produce an amazing wine. The King family, too, is another one, 4th one. They all produced an amazing wine that won prestigious awards outside of Canada that put us on the map. For instance, the Kings in Naramata, Edge in Naramata, they grew Pinot Gris, and we won Best White Wine Show at the LA County Fair for that wine. Well, then we justified. Well, we got to ask them to let us use their grapes to put them on the Sandhill label instead of the other one. But again, that's single vineyard. Every one of those growers, they had their name on the back with me.
Right. So here you've got
to the grower.
So you've got a large corporate organization that understands the importance of place.
I don't
and
think
vineyard.
so. I think we had to just sort of do it no matter what. It was kind of like that. It wasn't like, no, you can't do that. But don't forget the direction is a food company, not a company that understands wine. So it's like, well, we want to do wine here. We want to understand, bring the local people in, bring the local growers in, give credit to the guy who grew those grapes.
Right.
That was what it was all about, Ken.
Yeah.
So they just sort of let us go with it.
And that's what wine touring is all about. People want to connect the wine with the place.
Exactly. And that's, most of the business here, these land-based wineries, we have there's probably 150 wineries that are registered with the BC Wine Institute. There's a total of almost 300 wineries in all of BC. But what the stats is, most of those land-based wineries, they sell wine out the door. And that's what we want tourists to do that. Come and visit and buy those wines.
Would you ever have envisioned, go back to the 80s, and now look at things now, that there would be 300 wineries and we would have the reputation?
Look at the dollar value. In Canada, the total economic impact, whatever that means, when you have a wine business, what does that employ? People, truck drivers who bring wine and all this, glass manufacturing, all that. The total figure in Canada, economic benefit right now is $9 billion. In British Columbia alone, it's almost $3 billion. $3 billion. That's coming from our industry. Tourism, restaurants, meals, servers, all that. And I want to try the BC wine. It's all part of that. So that's successful, I would say, for British Columbians.
But you probably wouldn't have guessed that was coming.
No, we're always just fighting ahead. Oh, you guys make that cheap jug wine, that kind of stuff.
Well, like after that thing in the 80s, it was like, will it survive?
Yes.
And it is so thrived.
Yeah. So, and the free trade was one thing, but winning awards outside of our borders was also another thing.
Okay,
It put us on the map.
and I wanted to bring this
Yes.
one. You won this gold medal at the Chardonnay
du Monde. Now, that was an interesting one.
So
yes.
how did that come about?
We entered the contest all over the world. It's a bit of a competition. So you think your Chardonnay is good. Okay, let's enter it in France, in Burgundy, where the birthplace of Chardonnay wine is, and let's see how well it does. So they started a competition in Burgundy. Oh, you think you got good wine? Well, let's compare it against our wine, right?
Right.
So the judges were international judges came, and our wine and the winery from Ontario were the first Canadian wines to ever win a gold medal in Chardonnay, and there was only 14 gold medals given out that year. So I said to our boss, I said, hey, do you think they're giving out the award in Paris? Do you think I could go? Oh yeah, for sure. So I got a trip to Paris. My biggest failure, I'll say it on the air, my biggest failure, I didn't invite my wife to come. She could have killed me and she didn't.
But you didn't think you were going to get a gold, probably.
No, but I didn't. I should have asked, can Wendy, my wife and I come as well to Paris, right?
Yeah.
So I ordered a trip to Paris now.
You do.
I do, and she's never played that on me.
And I would say you have time, but that you
Yes.
keep trying to retire, and that doesn't work.
No.
So before we wrap this up,
Sure.
so you've seen this evolution, but you can't let it go. You tried to retire, but you're now working at Vanessa Vineyards.
I think for my health, it's better not to totally retire and hit the wall. Like some people can retire and just do something else, maybe play golf or whatever.
Right.
But
you want to keep a hand in it?
I want to stay on it because I've put a lot into this. So the mind you can't turn off the mind into the learning. So I like this still.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be sort of mentoring younger people, younger winemakers. I like to do that. I've been asked to advise other wineries, but my main employment is working for Vanessa Vineyard.
Right.
Similkameen.
But you've managed to craft your position there so that you're not there slugging it out 8 hours a day.
That's right. I have an understanding owner.
Right.
Yeah, so it's good.
So you can be as involved as you have time for
Yes.
and start to maybe pull back a bit.
That's right. Yeah, like today I'm going down there to where we get our wine made and we're going to do the blending for 2018 vintage.
That's a fun stage in the process.
It's an influential part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you for hours,
go
but
on.
I appreciate you giving us some of your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Kelowna Now.